Morning, everyone. Here for our last day of hearing, just in time for the world to end tomorrow. But that's okay. Tomorrow, just if you're worried about what's going to happen with the contract if the world ends tomorrow. Tomorrow is just all the souls that are being saved are going up to heaven. So good money says me, Sean, and Fred will still be here. So we'll get the contract done for those of you who are left. We're going to finish with the Commonwealth presentation today. Brian, it's your show.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last day. Today should be relatively quick. Brian Knowles and Ty Stanton will sit at the witness table and present a series of proposals. And we will have a couple of different witnesses that will come in and offer evidence in support of those positions. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Knowles and Mr. Stanton.
Okay, just so the panel is aware, I believe Exhibit 1 to our vote 4 is the Commonwealth's issues of dispute that's submitted to the arbitration panel.
Just pull the mic a little closer because I know there's some problems here.
Okay. To begin with, our first issue is walk time late relief. Just a brief history. In 2004, multiple arbitrations were taking place that determined time spent on a post at the end of the shift, waiting for relief, and time an employee spends after the end of the shift walking in transit between his or her post and the exit of the facility is considered work time.
There are really two different issues, late relief and then walk time. Late relief is the time spent from the time at the end of the shift till the relief arrives, and then the walk time is the walk out of the institution. But since 2004, we've been paying minute for minute for both walk time and late relief. The average correction officer is receiving 5.6 minutes of walk time per day. This is at the end of the shift, so that pays out a time and a half. And the slide has some numbers that show what the cost is for walk time and late relief. It's roughly $250,000 per pay period. And in your book, there's an exhibit that shows the department-wide what we're paying over the past several years in walk time.
What our proposal is to change the provisions of the contract that require the payment of time and a half beyond 8 and 80, and under the FLSA paid in accordance with the, I believe it's the 207K special exemption, which overtime premium pay will begin at 86 hours in the bi-weekly pay period. This would be able to save on the cost for the walk out of the institution. And on top of that, it is our understanding that the Fair Labor Standards Act has acknowledged that employees walking out of an institution or work setting for time of 10 minutes or less is considered de minimis and not compensable. So we would like the contract change to consider that as well.
So the late relief would still be compensated, but at straight time.
Correct.
And then assuming that the walk time out is 10 minutes or fewer, that would not be compensated.
Correct.
Okay.
Now my memory of that issue, and I didn't do the late relief cases, I did like an early, the duties prior, the pre-shift duties. So again, I'm doing this from memory on just reading the decisions from the late relief and the walk time. And I think one of the arguments for the walk time was that if something were to happen, you know, the officer was still considered on duty and would have to respond to that, or, you know, or if the supervisor said do this or do that, it's not like they can say, no, I'm done. They would have to respond. I mean, is that accurate?
Correct. If an officer had been relieved and were walking out of the institution, if something were to happen where they would have to respond, they would be compensated for that time.
And this isn't an uncommon practice. We've done research with surrounding states, and specifically Ohio and New York State have a very similar standard where they pay for the late relief. If you haven't been relieved from your post, you're clearly still working, but once you've been relieved of that post and you're on your walk out, there's a de minimis standard as far as payment before overtime begins after that. and they have the same requirement. If they're required to respond, if something initiates their reaction, their initiation of the performance of their duties on that walkout, then they become on compensable status again.
So in response to the arbitrator's question, if an incident were to occur and the officer had to respond, would I be correct then all of that time would be compensated?
Yes.
Okay. Including if he had 3 minutes of walk time before he had to respond, you're not going to make a distinction there.
No. As we go through this presentation, maybe in the beginning part here, if there's questions based on each proposal, we want to ask the questions after each proposal before we move on.
Right, that's the best way to do it. So,
Okay.
you know, whenever Brian indicates that, okay, I'm finished with that proposal,
That's fine.
take your questions.
I think that wraps up the walk time.
I just have one question in regard to the walk time, and I think this goes without saying. Is it fair to say in all 27 institutions that when you're walking out of the facility, you're still exposed to the dangers that a regular CO faces on a day-to-day basis? There's inmates around you, things of that nature when you're walking out of the facility?
Yes. Possibly, yeah.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right, any questions from the panel?
No others.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The next issue of dispute is bid post. Much? Yeah. So I'm going to have an opportunity for our other witnesses to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm John Murray, I'm Superintendent of the State Correctional Institution in Campbell.
And I'm Jamie Boyles. I'm the Deputy for Facilities Management at CI Crescent.
Welcome, John.
All right, I'm going to try to summarize the history of bid posts briefly. It goes back to 1988 when the union and management developed side letters that provided for a post that had limited inmate contact and control, and I won't bore you with the complete definition, but it was in the ideal position that you use your seniority to bid on a post that got you away from working the 8 hours of monotonous inmate contact and control. For years, under Pscoa, there's been a dispute between management and union on how many posts actually fit that definition. When we went before Arbitrator Zobrak, it was an issue in dispute. Arbitrator Zobrak essentially took the definition in the side letters, merged it in a way, modified it a little bit, and presented it as contract language to actually be entered into the CBA.
What year was that?
That was in 2008. By doing so, he tasked the parties with having local negotiations over what posts meet the definition and what don't. If the parties were not able to come to an agreement on that, then it would go to a statewide arbitration. Unfortunately, there were no local agreements, so we had to go to a statewide arbitration. I think that started in January of 2009, where every facility in the state put on testimony both from the union and from management with regard to almost every post in each facility and whether each post met the definition as described in the contract or not regarding limited inmate contact control. As a result of that, Arbitrator Coldflesh issued a decision in the end of May, early June of 2009. There's been an appeal on that by the Commonwealth. The parties have continually gone back to Arbitrator Coldflesh to try to iron out the implementation of his award. So it's still an unresolved issue. This proposal, in a way, is not touching what he's done. What we're essentially asking for in our proposal is that we want to just eliminate the concept of bid post and the ability to have an employee use his seniority to bid a post assignment. I will now turn it over to the other witnesses.
Good morning. Bid posts make it very difficult for management to effectively manage facilities. We respect seniority, but we believe that we're the people who need to identify who works where. And we do that a number of ways, through our subordinate managers. You know, we identify staff with certain strengths. People have strengths and people have weaknesses. We try to identify staff that has strengths in a particular area, and we want to be able to put that individual in that area to best manage the facility and did post kind of hamstrings management from that ability.
Some of the posts that meet the criteria described in the contract, but yet management needs control to be able to assign these posts. On the board, the first one there is the control post, and some of the issues or some of the things in the control post that makes it gives us or we need to be able to assign that post is that there's so many things that go through the control center. It's a very busy area. There's a lot of alarms. There's a lot of equipment issue. There's a lot of radio calls. All these things have to be answered quickly at times. The most important part of the control center is the biometrics monitoring, which is the employees and any inmates that do go outside the facility use the biometrics to go out. And, they have to monitor that. Those control room officers have to monitor that to make sure that nobody gets out that's not supposed to. And as I said earlier, it's a very busy area, and missing one person walking out of there could be detrimental to the security of the institution and the public itself. Again, if an officer is at all complacent in that area, then bad things happen. Contraband control is control room officers' responsibility also.
If I can just jump in, control room posts also have a lot of new technologies. And, some staff are better with technology than others. I know, I'm not a real computer savvy guy, but, other people are. And with that being said, that post is also a post that you really need to be able to multitask. Because you're processing staff in, you're processing staff out. You have to go through the electronic scanning, make sure that the staff person's ID matches up with the base on the screen, so to speak. Some institutions, that officer has other responsibilities. He may control access to a certain area. So that individual may not be your common CO. That may be somebody who stands out a little bit above the rest and is able to do multiple things at a time. That's important.
So you propose paying them more for being over and above the rest?
No, sir. I know, corrections officers all receive the same training, but just like people, some people are better at things than other people. That's what it boils down to, I think, sir.
How many people man the control post at one time?
Well, it's going to depend on the institution. I
What's the
can't
rate?
feel there's one gate officer. At Graterford, I believe there's 3 that work up at the main gate.
Is 3 the most and 1 the fewest?
I really couldn't give you a definitive answer, sir. I don't know what the rest of the facilities are lined up like.
Brian, can you get that information to us? You don't have to do it today, so that we know how many people we're talking about for each shift.
Sure. You're specific to control?
Yes, I'm going to ask the same with the other ones that you go down here. No, they're not, they haven't talked about those yet.
No. I'm backing up, I'm going back a couple steps, Brian. Is the co-flesh award still on appeal, if that makes sense?
Yes.
And is the argument that it infringes on management rights and to simplify things?
No. The appeal is about certain posts being designated. That's why this proposal, I don't think in any way, if we don't get this proposal, it has no impact on his decision. If we get it.
Right. If the award issued tomorrow, that's really the purpose of my question. If not the award, if the appeal decision is issued tomorrow, that wouldn't necessarily have an impact on what you're asking for here.
No, and really the appeal deals with only one issue and one issue only. It's arbitrator Colflesh said that, I'm not going to second guess the parties who for 20 years plus have mutually agreed